do it in here, or you do it out?
Motion by myself to come out of executive section, second by Mr. Bishop. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Let the record reflect no action was taken. Bring back our IT director. What's his name again? Marcus. There we go. Marcus. And Miss Becky.
Okay, here's Becky. Get up to the throne there. Come on up. Come on down. Yeah, there you go.
Quick intro from my way of thinking on this, just to kind of get us oriented on what we're about. This is on our elections. We've got an election, obviously, that's coming up in November that we're going to be dealing with. Ms. Becky invited us to come down and take a look at some of the LNA testing that they are getting ready to do, walked us through that process. We asked Marcus to come over. Bob was able to actually be there, just sort of put eyeballs on the equipment and the process of going through LNA testing so that everybody kind of understood. The idea behind that meeting was to anticipate this board having to decide, are we going to continue to let the circuit clerk handle the election for at least for some period of time, or are we going to move that back to IT like we have done in the past? And so we just got everybody around the table to talk about what would need to be done to get us ready for November. And that's where we are, and we're going to give you guys an opportunity to ask any questions or Miss Becky to fill in any details for you. Right now, we have a contract that self-terminated unless the board continued it on July 31st. So y'all are going to have to actually act to either move it back again to Miss Becky under those terms, which I don't think are going to change.
No, those terms are the same.
Exact term. Or are we going to give it to IT? That's what we need to talk about.
I think the biggest issue I picked up on, that Craig picked up on, and is that Marcus said you get 2 weeks before the general in November, the first election, the LNA testing. But then we're on a much tighter timeline on the runoff. We're never going to have runoff. We've got too many judges to realize we're not going to have a runoff. And if we decide to stick with IT on this deal, it's going to commit their resources pretty much to that, which is going to leave us on the IT side of having problems potentially getting our IT problems fixed.
Here's one question I've got, and it's to Marcus more or less. Just can you give me kind of an overview on your thoughts and kind of where you're at on stepping in and handling and running full bore? If we hand you the magical book and says, here's the elections for you today.
Now, let's say Michelle is still on board regardless, whether it's with Miss Becky or with us doing it. Michelle is still there. And she had a list. We don't have it, I don't guess. But it's a 2-page list that steps out everything she does or needs to be done and the time she thinks it takes to do it, which is a great benefit to us.
Sure.
But let's go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, no problem. So, I mean, I've had a pretty good overview of the process, of what will have to be done so far. I've never actually been able to see an election to kind of from an observer standpoint all the way through this process of the LNA testing of the machines, which is the largest majority of the manpower involved, whether it's from Ms. Becky's staff or myself. And that's one of the biggest things. And one of the things that I've been trying to come up on is every little step of the process and all the election law that surrounds that. And not having been an observer of a past election, I've kind of been at a loss for that. I've been trying to read up as much as I can. Michelle's been giving me a lot of good information. Miss Becky's given me a lot of good information, and I've been trying to soak up everything I can on it. That being said, I would really appreciate the opportunity to at least be an observer, for an election cycle to see, kind of what's going on. And we've also got, the issue, like Mr. Moreau said, of the manpower aspect. Basically, we're looking at 4 people being committed to between 2 and 3 weeks to the LNA testing. We're losing a lot of IT time as far as project type work. We'll be able to try to answer emergency calls and stuff like that, but we'll be spending most of the month of December trying to do catch ups on.
And that was my thing. I just want to be sure going into the election with the importance of every election that we have, obviously, that we're up to speed and running. We don't have any hiccups and misses. And that was kind of my thing. I wanted to be sure that, you were fully aware of it and prepared to go into that system of it. And if not, I appreciate you telling me, so we can try to make adjustments to figure out what we need to do from that point. So that's what I was trying to figure out.
Yeah, and when y'all brought it up before, we talked about this. You know, you guys told me that IT supported elections at one point, and I had no idea how much involvement IT actually had in the past for the process. You know, I just figured they were normal IT staff kind of, you know, supporting the process and the applications and the users. I didn't realize we were actually running a lot of the process for them. But, you know, I'll be glad to take on, you know, whatever you guys want for me, but I would really appreciate the opportunity to kind of, you know, put eyeballs on it at least one, you know, round through.
And one solution we had talked about briefly when we were out there is getting Jared Grant to be on call, or as a contingency if we decide to go IT route. If something came up and Marcus was in the middle of it or whatever, you know, that Jared could step over here and fix whatever problems we had. So then we got the cost of that if we decide to go that route. You know, it may not be anything. It's a gamble.
I don't think we'll have to worry about that. I mean, I think the election deal is time consuming, but it's not really hard. So, I mean, I think once he gets involved with it, he'll be able to
It's
take
coming
care
from
of
the
it.
supervisor sitting over
But
here.
you know,
That's our desk.
I mean, I guess my thing.
Yeah,
I
I
know it's tough.
If you get somebody who's never done it before and they walk in and do it first time,
Yeah.
it can't be that difficult, you know. So
My thought would be to let him see it at least one time before we turn the whole full throttle, hand it over to him. That would be my thought. And say, look, before we throw you out to the wolves, which we could, if you do that, we run the risk of hiccups and stuff going through the election, and it's a pretty full ticket.
if that's what you want,
My thought would be at least let him see it one good time, you know, but I'm open to thoughts.
Does anyone have any questions for me?
What do you think, Bob?
I tend to agree with Jay.
Let him go with it on his own?
I think Michelle is there. That's your point person. I mean, she's the one that brings the expertise to the table and does it. I mean, it's just it's a manpower issue. That's what Becky was able to bring manpower when she did the last 3 elections where we didn't have anybody really in IT to do anything with. We ramped it up some, but we hadn't back to where we used to be, and that may be an issue that Marcus has to address with us. If we do decide to go IT, can we do it? Or can he and Michelle and the other 2 or whoever do it?
well,
But I'm like
we have the
Jay. I
other
think
employee there does it too. What's his name?
Tyler?
Yeah. So
The only
he's
thing
helped.
that Tyler helped with was the night of the election. He came over and was with Michelle and I the night of the election, but he didn't help with any of the getting the ballots prepared. He didn't help with any of the LNA testing, things like that. He didn't help with any of that.
Okay. Well, I guess this Michelle knows then. But I mean, I know we did it last time because we didn't have employees and we were in a bind, but now we got them. You know, I'm ready for us to hit the ground running. But
The time constraint is very important. September the 12th is when the Secretary of State pushes down the election to us. That's when we have to start the coding and the programming, so that's just a couple of weeks from now. We have to start absentee voting September the 22nd, I think it is. So we have to have the ballots ready, we have to have what we call the ballot on demand machine in my office ready by then.
Just don't want to have to blow up.
So, like he said, you know, he's never ever, until he came to the warehouse the other day, he had never even laid eyes on the machines, much less had any training whatsoever on how to program them or test them or anything like that. I'm just saying that it's a much, much more complicated process than I think the majority of y'all realize.
Hey,
I believe you.
count me out.
Well, I mean, and for the same point, I think from our standpoint, we should have told Marcus on the front side back in June, July, hey, by the way, you know, you can be full throttle in this thing starting September 12th, the first deadline meet. But here we are. I mean,
I kind of thought we did say that. You know, like when we hired him, you're going to be over the election.
I don't know if that was his. I don't know that we gave him those directives. I mean,
I don't think we gave that exact directive. We did talk about the election.
We talked about the
Yeah,
election.
we didn't give a date, but I mean,
I see it here. That's done deal. That's water
My
behind
point
it.
is, my thing is, we're sitting here going into Labor Day Monday, which is a holiday. So you're talking about starting to work on the 5th or 4th or whatever day Tuesday is.
We start in the next week, in the week after next.
He's got-
what you're talking about.
Yeah, 8 days to figure it out.
This last cycle, election and runoffs and splits and there, I didn't hear anything other than everything went smooth. Was it pretty seamless?
It was. And I will say, you know, part of that was the new machines, you know, that helped tremendously. To me, elections is kind of like putting together a big puzzle. You know, it takes a whole lot of working pieces to make a successful election. But no, we felt like the last election was very smooth. We had put a lot of time into it, you know, checking and rechecking and double checking and, you know, everything like that, making sure that everything that we had done was done correctly. But no, I did feel like it was a very good
We
election.
don't get but one shot at it. We don't get to say,
That's right.
oops, messed it up, y'all come back tomorrow.
That's right, yeah,
So, I'm, well,
yeah.
Well, just so y'all understand what she's talking about, the program and everything, Michelle's still gonna do that.
That's right. Michelle.
Marcus is not gonna do that.
Michelle's still the point person in this
Yeah,
process.
okay,
Yeah.
and Michelle and I will say, Michelle does do, I paid Michelle to do the program, the money that y'all paid me, I paid Michelle to do the programming. But I was there with her, because there's a lot of little things, there's tons of labels that we have to, you know, just busy kind of work that has to be done. So, it's not just her doing the programming, there's a lot of other things that I was able to help her with, and Becky Pouncey in my office were able to help her with, you know, while she was doing that.
All right, let me ask you
let me
this.
ask this. All right. If she works just so many hours a week,
Yeah, she's part-time. isn't she?
so if we say we're gonna do it with Rankin County, I mean, just us.
Yeah.
She's gonna have to work overtime.
That's right.
So we're still gonna pay her. It's not,
If you're gonna pay her, but I think our
Well,
fee
we're-
with Becky's
it's just-
20,000 election though.
we're gonna pay her and some, I mean,
Which was it,
20?
15.
No,
what?
12,500.
Yeah.
12,000?
What was it,
12,500.
12,500?
12,500.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know what the hell I got twisted then, I guess.
But-
I've been dreaming that one.
Michelle's part-time, that's the point
Right.
you're arguing.
Yeah.
right?
And I think that's
We're gonna-
part of the
We're gonna be
problem.
paying her,
Yeah.
whether she's
Don't let it
working
hurt
for
you.
us or her.
Yeah, what Michelle did before, she's off on Tuesday, she worked for the county Monday, Thursdays, and
How do we
Fridays.
do that on a part-time basis? How do we pay her overtime on a part-time?
It wouldn't be overtime, it would be straight time.
Just
unless
more
you
hours.
worked over 40 hours.
She worked over
E-
40.
e- Even,
But
let's do-
even declared as a part-time employee, you could-
Yeah,
Overtime, but
yeah.
we'd have to pay her for at least
Yeah,
straight
okay.
time.
And I expect us to go over 40
Oh, yeah.
in those 2 weeks in between. We've also got the Thanksgiving holiday and Veterans Day holiday that fall in those 2 weeks. So I expect us to run into some overtime in those 2 weeks to try and get those machines LNA'd and everything
Right.
within that time frame, because the ballots have to be fully prepared and coded. Everything has to be printed and marked so that we can actually do the testing on the machines.
Yeah, that's another
So,
thing. We
we
had,
got a tight timeline there.
on the last election, we had 800 ballots, that each ballot you have to have a scenario of every possible thing. So, and the last election was much smaller than this election, but last time we had like 800 ballots that we had to go through there and mark different scenarios. So that's part of the programming. And that's things too, like you said, that Michelle does the actual programming on the computer, but she didn't do this other stuff that had to be done in order to be able to do the LNA testing.
Voice
She did
prompts
not
on
do
your
that.
ADA devices,
Yeah.
there are, and you have to go through the scenarios on the ADA devices as well. There's a lot of testing related, that's what logic and accuracy is, there's a lot of testing related, details that has to be done, which translates into manpower, that has to do it. And I think the point that we're trying to stress, as it relates to your consideration of what Marcus's involvement will be this: you will have to have IT hands-on, or he's gonna have to bring in people who can do these detail-oriented testing activities. And the issue when you start talking about elections is, who are you bringing in to be around this equipment? Because at some point, the Secretary of State's gonna say, you got high school kids doing your LNA testing? Really? I mean, it could be that silly if you start working out manpower issues so that you can cover what you're really here to do, which is IT related work. So that, really, I think it was before you just kind of wrap it saying, I wanna be an observer, but the truth of the matter is, if he's down there, he's gonna be hands-on, elbows deep in it with them, understanding what's going on. He won't be fully responsible for it. That would still be Ms. Becky's responsibility.
Here's one of my other thoughts on the same side of that is that leading up into the last election, my phone lit up all the time on complaints and issues. Now, one of those problems was fixed with the new equipment, which has been a huge thing, and Jay did a great job, I think, in identifying a good product.
I think we all did that.
Well, I mean, I didn't know what I was looking at, but I mean, we did. We've got a really good product on the same point. So we're starting to reinstill the confidence in the voter that's out there now. I don't want to have a negative pop come in November when everybody's out voting for all the different tickets that are filled out there. I don't want to run that risk. To me, it's not worth the risk as far as what we know. We got to guarantee that we know it worked the same way. I want Marcus to see it, at least see it one time before you do it. I mean, that's my take on it. But
FYI,
I don't know
this is
that
just
good.
anecdotal,
Not right out
just
of
to
the
give
gate either.
you guys a little bit of a flavor. Secretary of State has shipped people over here to actually be around our equipment. Look at our equipment.
Change oil
Talk
right
to
now.
Michelle, talk to Ms.
I mean,
Becky
to
about
September.
our equipment. Our
service
anticipation
up.
is
I
that
don't know
the
what
Secretary
all
of
the
State is
service
getting ready to move the entire state to this ballot scanner setup like we have here. I don't know that they're gonna use hard equipment, we don't know that yet, and it's unclear exactly where they're headed with this. But we fully expect that there's gonna be a push at some point to move the entire state to this setup. So, that speaks really well for how we handled that RFP and who we brought in to give us counsel and advice on moving in that direction, and I think that's what's coming. I mention that only as a talking point for you guys as we move into next year. You're gonna probably wanna spend some time adding that into your standard talk when you're out communicating with in your district. You're gonna wanna talk about the success that we've had on the election side. What I'm hopeful of is that what happens in November, you're able to point at and say, with the exact same statement, everything went smooth.
well, and if it goes bad, they're going to point at the election.
They won't point it to Becky. It's really Becky who did the
I
election.
really don't
That's
want
what
to
she
go
said, it'll
there.
be me.
That's right.
Becky's gonna say, it's an IT guy.
That's what I told them
Let me,
before.
let me throw a suggestion out to the board if I can, and Jen, let me ask you, Becky and Marcus, y'all still good if we make a decision on the 4th, which is Tuesday? Give the time, or you need a decision today?
That's up to y'all. I mean,
I mean,
I would
time-wise,
make a
that give
decision
you enough
today,
time.
but
I mean, if we make a decision, it'll give the board over the weekend to do some due diligence on their own, talk to election commissioners, other folks, to make sure they get all what they want to get comfortable with. Are y'all still good if we make a decision, Tuesday morning, which direction we want to go with you? I guess mostly you. Marcus will do what we tell him to do.
What you tell him to do.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I would rather have an answer today, but I mean, if I don't, I don't. I mean, that's just, I understand that.
Well, that'd
I
be
don't
my
see a
suggestion.
problem really today myself.
But I'll put it to a vote. Someone make a motion. I'll entertain it.
Yeah, my motion would be to continue on the way we did it the last time, whatever time, was it June?
Yeah, so it was a short term.
Yeah.
I don't remember when we initiated it, but we had a solid termination
Yeah.
date. I would suggest we do the same thing. We just make it effective
Yeah.
through,
Oh.
especially your
The
last
runoff
reporting
election would-
requirements.
What now?
Your last reporting requirements, if we have a November runoff, which would be.
The
like
November
December
runoff is
3rd.
November 27th.
So if we set a termination date of December 15th,
Oh, yeah.
we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my motion would be that, to run it one more cycle and then with the mindset of,
But as a training
yeah,
time,
with IT
knowing
working
that you're
closely
gonna pick
with
it
you.
up after the fact, so you
Yeah.
better get it all together this time.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let you see it.
See, y'all keep missing the point. Michelle's not going anywhere. I mean, y'all not saying, y'all think he's gonna do it all. It'd be
No,
different
no,
if
I'm
Michelle
not.
was leaving
No,
and
I'm
she's not.
No, I'm
Let
not.
me ask this.
How
What
do
if,
you know?
what if the week before Michelle did just what lady over in payroll did?
What are you gonna do this year?
She's the only
We're
one
gonna
that's
bring
been
Hardy in.
trained.
What we gonna do?
We would have to bring in
Well,
somebody from
but my
Hardy.
point on
But
that,
if he
Marcus
learns it
needs to see
too,
that same
right.
point, is
I
that
mean,
the only person you got to handle it is
If he-
Michelle.
If he
So we
learns
need some
it, then
redundancy.
next
I agree.
year, we'll have two.
Well,
And
let's be real. What's gonna happen if Michelle bellies up on us, one way or the other, we're bringing Hard in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how we're gonna solve that.
Yeah.
Well, I know, we're just giving scenarios, but
But I
he
mean,
needs
really,
to know.
Michelle could get sick.
Yeah.
I mean, there could be a
She
lot
get
of
the flu.
scenarios.
I mean, bless her
In a
heart.
wreck, I mean,
You got an
anything.
emergency.
There is a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Well, we were discussing it still.
Second.
President.
Second, Mr. Gaines. Any other discussion?
Anybody
All in
else-
favor say
anything
aye.
else to say?
I got one, I don't see but one aye.
Aye.
I see 2 aye, 3 aye. Motion 3, any opposed?
Nay.
3-2,
I'll do
it
that.
passes. You're good to go till December 15th, Ms. Becky, we appreciate it. Marcus, you're on point, pay attention.
So wait.
Learn.
Is this for the runoff too? I mean, the,
Yeah, includes runoff too.
That would be
Okay.
to add. That would be to add.
Need to add that
That was to
same
add.
group of folks to
Okay,
add,
same group, okay.
Okay.
and then
Same
it's the
group.
same group to approve.
I like you better standing. I think it's a better way.
I've got a lunch and I gotta be at
You should have been an attorney with all the
More
hand
powerful.
motion you're doing.
It's more powerful. Don't you think, Slay? It's a little more powerful.
All right, anything else business-wise, any additional business? Is there a motion to adjourn to September 4th at 9 a.m. by Mr. Cross, second by myself, all in favor say aye.
You wasn't
All opposed,
wasting no
like sign.
time.
Motion carries. See y'all Tuesday
Is
morning.
it the 4th or the 5th?
Thank y'all.
Four.
All
Tuesday.
right.
That's Tuesday.
That's it.
That's it.
Okay.
You'll get to do.
Thank y'all.
I'm working on it. Hey,
That's not the same, can I?
yeah, it is, but I was looking.
See, Bob?
Hey,
Do it
Bob.
all day.
Hey, Bob. I need to ask you